The most shocking missing case you won't believe is real. Missing person, Harper Vance. October 3rd, 2003. Nettle Falls, Oregon. The wind doesn't howl in Nettle Falls. It whispers slow and steady, like something trying not to be heard. On the morning Harper Vance disappeared. The fog hadn't lifted by noon, and the forest outside her grandmother's home seemed to swallow the light whole. What started as a quiet weekend retreat in a sleepy Oregon town would spiral into one of the most unsettling missing persons cases the state has ever recorded. She was only 16. Before we begin, I want to let you know that due to the limited visual materials and the age of this case, there isn't much existing footage or imagery to support the story you're about to hear. As a result, this episode will feature a single image background throughout. Think of this as more of an immersive audio experience, a storytelling session that lets your imagination fill in the gaps. Now's the perfect time to grab your headphones, maybe even some popcorn, and settle in. Harper Vance wasn't your typical teenager. Soft-spoken and sharp-eyed, she carried a sketch pad more often than a phone. Her teachers describe her as reflective, sometimes distant, an old soul with a shadow behind her eyes. Her mother, Miranda Vance, said Harper had been pulling away that fall, sleeping late, sketching strange figures, wandering off for hours. But nothing had prepared them for what would happen during that long October weekend. Nettle Falls was supposed to be a break. Miranda had sent Harper to stay with her grandmother, Judith Vance, in the hopes that the quiet would soothe her. It was a 3-day visit, Friday through Sunday, in a town with a population just shy of 800 and not a single traffic light. Judith's home sat on the edge of Hemlock Ridge, a crumbling pine-covered slope that turned pitch black after dusk. Harper arrived Friday afternoon by bus. According to town records and local transit logs, she stepped off bus 62 at 4:37 p.m. She was last seen by the driver walking alone toward Judith's house with her hood up and a backpack slung over one shoulder. By Saturday evening, Harper was gone. 7:12 a.m. Judith hears Harper up early, boiling water for tea. 8:40 a.m. Harper leaves the house with her sketchbook. 12:23 p.m. A hiker reports seeing a teenage girl with long dark hair sitting near Deadman's Bluff. 3:17 p.m. Judith notices Harper hasn't returned. 6:42 p.m. Harper officially reported missing to the Nettle Falls Sheriff's Office. Deadman's Bluff. The name alone keeps most locals away. A jagged outcropping above the Nettle Gorge. It's accessible only by a winding trail line with half-rotted steps and weather-worn markers from the 1970s. The last person to die there fell in 1988. A drifter passing through, but the rumors go back decades. Strange lights, sound of crying in the woods. People field watched. Harper had drawn it once. A charcoal sketch found in her bedroom back home showed the cliff edge rendered in stark blacks and grays. In the corner, a small figure stood alone, facing the trees, not the edge. That detail still bothers investigators. Sheriff Alan Keene, who took over the case just days before his retirement, led the first search party. She couldn't have gone far, he told the press. If she wandered off trail, the dogs would find her. But 3 days of search and rescue efforts turned up nothing. No scent, no clothing, no footprints, not even a dropped pencil or a torn page from her sketchbook. It was as if she'd vanished between two heartbeats. By the end of the week, the town was gripped. Local grocery stores taped up flyers. Kids at Nettle High started bringing flowers to Bluff. One classmate, Marissa Lang, said Harper had seemed weirdly fixated on shadows a week before. She told me she couldn't sleep, said something was calling her. I thought she was just being poetic. Then there was the sketchbook, found on Judith's porch 3 days after the disappearance. It was soaked from a late-night rain. Most of the pages were smeared and unreadable, but on the last intact page was a drawing of a doorway, tall, rough-hewn, set into the base of a hill with something dark pouring out of it. The forensic team dismissed it as fantasy. The family disagreed. She was telling us something, Miranda Vance insisted. She put that book back there herself. Why would she leave it unless she knew no one would find her? In the following weeks, a few threads appeared, each more confusing than the last. An old hunter named Reggie Haskins claimed he saw Harper talking to someone in the woods the morning she disappeared. She wasn't scared, he said, just standing there, arms at her sides. The other person looked taller, didn't move. No other reports corroborated the sighting. No footprints, no clothing fibers, no evidence of a second person. Then there were the animals. 2 dogs from separate search teams refused to go past a certain point on the Hemlock Trail. Both handlers reported the same behavior. Ears flat, tails down, whining. It was as if the forest itself didn't want them there. As October bled into November, the leaves died and the case grew colder. The search was scaled back. Judith kept a light on in Harper's room every night. "She's out there," she told a local reporter, "but I don't think she's gone." Harper's disappearance began to draw attention from outside Nettle Falls. True crime forums picked up the story. Theories ranged from tragic accident to abduction to wilder speculation. Cult activity, forest entities, and unexplainable forces. A documentary crew from Portland came and left within a week, frustrated by the lack of access and answers. But the strangest discovery came in December. A group of volunteer hikers found an old hiking boot roughly 2 miles north of the original search area. It was stuck in a split between rocks, almost intentionally placed. When analyzed, the size matched Harper's, but the model was from 1996, 3 years older than any shoes she was known to own. And inside the boot, a Polaroid photo, black and white, faded. It showed what looked like the same cliff Harper was last seen near, but the trees in the photo were denser, older, and in the lower left corner, a blurry figure. Female, barefoot, staring directly into the lens. 22 years later, Harper Vance's room remains untouched in her mother's home outside Eugene. Her drawings are preserved in archival boxes. Miranda no longer does interviews, but released a single statement in 2017 on what would have been Harper's 30th birthday. There's a shape to grief when you bury someone, a rhythm, but when they vanish, it's like holding your breath forever. I just want to know if she's cold. Despite repeated FOIA requests, large portions of the original search documents remain redacted. Case file #038 is still marked active but unsolved. Every few years, a new tip resurfaces. Someone claims to have seen a girl matching Harper's description at a gas station, a rest stop, a bus station. All leads go nowhere. One local legend has taken root. That if you go to Deadman's Bluff on the anniversary of her disappearance and leave behind a pencil, the next morning, you'll find a drawing in its place. No one has ever caught it happening, but several have claimed it's true. Harper's disappearance remains one of the most haunting cases in the Pacific Northwest. No trace of her, living or dead, has ever been conclusively found. No suspects, no clear motive, no confession, just a trail that ends in fog and questions that get heavier with time. What compelled a quiet, thoughtful 16-year-old to wander into a place even the locals avoid? Was she running towards something or away from something no one else could see? And if Harper Vance is still out there, the day began quietly at Judith Vance's cabin. According to her statement, Judith awoke to the sound of the kettle clicking off. When she entered the kitchen, Harper was already seated at the table, cradling a chipped porcelain mug. She didn't speak much. Judith recalled that she looked tired but calm. She wore a faded blue hoodie, dark jeans, and worn hiking boots. The only notable detail, Harper had her sketchbook with her, and she'd drawn something new on the back cover. A small, faint doorway, barely noticeable. She wasn't rushing, Judith said, but it felt like she had a purpose. 8:04 a.m. Harper stepped outside alone. No phone, no flashlight, no music, just her sketchbook and a charcoal pencil tucked behind one ear. The Vance cabin sits just a quarter mile from the trailhead, leading to Hemlock Trail, a popular local path that winds through old-growth forest and eventually reaches Deadman's Bluff. Judith assumed Harper would walk the loop. She often did when visiting. The round trip takes about 2 hours for most hikers. 8:40 a.m. A local delivery driver, Tom Braley, passed Harper on the old access road near the trail entrance. He described her as walking with intention, but said she didn't acknowledge him when he slowed his truck to wave. She didn't even glance up, he noted, eyes forward, like she was heading somewhere she knew. This is the last confirmed sighting of Harper Vance by a known adult. Deputies note from original case log. Clouds are low, dense fog in upper elevations. Visibility is less than 30 foot past marker 12 on Hemlock Trail. Recommended delay for any non-essential hikers. Unbeknownst to search teams at the time, Harper had already passed that marker. Local hiking enthusiast Sharon Meeks reported hearing what she described as distant laughter near the bluff, sharp echoing, then suddenly cut off. I thought someone was playing a prank, but it wasn't playful, she said. It made me uncomfortable. Sharon would later tell authorities that she considered turning back, but continued to the bluff and saw no one. She had unknowingly passed within 150 yards of Harper's last known location, a critical but ambiguous sighting. Park volunteer and biology student Owen Reyes claimed he spotted a teenage girl sketching alone on a boulder about 60 feet off the main trail near Deadman's Bluff. She looked peaceful, he said, like she was drawing something right in front of her, just off the ledge. I figured she was just another quiet artist. Owen didn't approach. When he looped back 15 minutes later, the rock was empty. There was no sign of Harper. A Polaroid camera shutter clicks in the hands of a backpacker named Ellis Carmichael, taking landscape shots along the ridge. He would later find, after Harper's disappearance became public, that one of his photos showed something strange. What appears to be the edge of a blue hoodie near the base of a large cedar tree in the distance. Though unclear, the timestamp places the image within an hour of Harper's likely presence at the bluff. The tree was later searched. Nothing was found. Back at the cabin, Judith begins to grow concerned. Harper hadn't returned for lunch and hadn't responded to a call across the ridge trail. She walked to the edge of the trail and waited, watching the path, calling Harper's name every few minutes. I kept expecting her to come around the bend. Judith said she always did. By 4:45 p.m., Harper had missed her check-in time. Judith contacted the sheriff's office. Subject: Harper Vance, age 16. Last seen, Hemlock Trail, Deadman's Bluff vicinity. Clothing: blue hoodie, black jeans, hiking boots. Carried: sketchbook, pencil. Search and rescue SAR was dispatched by 7:10 p.m. Local volunteers were asked to avoid the bluff due to dangerous terrain and low visibility. The first ground team set out just after sunset. SAR Team Charlie discovered what appeared to be a torn strip of blue fabric snagged on a bramble along a lower bluff trail. It was collected as evidence and sent for lab analysis. 2 days later, the fabric was confirmed to be nylon. Harper's hoodie was cotton. Additionally, trace pollen on the fabric matched cedar trees common 15 miles north of Nettle Falls. Conclusion: unrelated hiker gear, not part of Harper's clothing. Search areas were broken into 5 zones, focusing on Hemlock Ridge, Deadman's Bluff perimeter, the ravine below the ledge, secondary wildlife paths west of the trail, waterways leading toward Nettle Gorge. Cadaver dogs were deployed. Air search via helicopter was delayed until 8:17 a.m. due to early fog. No scent trail was picked up. 8:31 a.m. Deputy Rena Carver found a shoe print partially obscured by moss along a stream bed near trail marker 14. It matched the sole pattern of Harper's boots, size 6 Vibram tread, but was inconclusive due to erosion. No other matching prints were found in the vicinity. Harper's mother, Miranda, reported receiving a voicemail from an unknown number at 2:12 a.m. Sunday morning. The audio was 5 seconds long. Faint static, a tone, then what sounded like a single word. Here, media outlets briefly reported this as a possible attempt at contact. Phone triangulation revealed the call originated from a decommissioned landline near a ranger station, abandoned since 1999. Forensic techs later discovered the voicemail was a robocall misdial from an expired outbound server. Sheriff Alan Keene addresses the press. We have no evidence of foul play, but we're not ruling anything out. Miss Vance's disappearance is being treated as critical. We are asking anyone with knowledge of her whereabouts, or anyone who may have been in the area on Saturday morning, to come forward. Harper's mother makes a public statement. "If you're scared, Harp, it's okay. Just come home." Flyers were distributed across county lines. Media coverage began to increase across Oregon. Though authorities maintained a serious tone, the town of Nettle Falls harbored darker theories. Residents spoke of the Ridge Watchers, an old logging camp tale about figures that stand motionless at the tree line, watching hikers from a distance. A few said Harper had written about them in her sketchbooks. Others pointed to the Echo Tree, a twisted fern near the edge of the bluff where some claimed they could hear voices, not their own, repeating phrases long after they'd left. No official report links these stories to Harper's case, but some searchers refuse to enter that stretch of woods alone. Volunteer hiker Kayla Wexley, 22, discovers a small wooden charm tied with red string to a branch near the overlook, roughly 400 feet from Deadman's Bluff. The charm was carved in the shape of a door, identical to the one Harper had drawn. It was not there during the initial sweep of the area. Investigators photographed and collected the item. No prints, no tool marks, no explanation for its sudden appearance. That evening, SAR teams re-scanned the bluff. Still, nothing. Scent trail, lost at the eastern bluff perimeter. Last confirmed sighting, approximate 12:23 p.m. Evidence collected. Torn nylon, unrelated. Shoe print inconclusive. Sketchbook, found 3 days later. Carved charm unexplained. Person of interest, none. Vehicle, none involved. Harper arrived on foot via bus. Phone, no known phone number carried. Case file 038. B remains active but classified as cold. Federal authorities were never formally involved due to a lack of interstate indicators. 2 weeks later, a retired park ranger named Henry Lowen came forward with a quiet admission. He said that in 1997, he responded to an unofficial report of a missing girl, never publicly disclosed, who was last seen on the same trail. She, too, was an artist. She, too, was never found. The files had been lost in transfer, he said. The original report? Gone. Local officials dismissed Lowen's memory as misremembered, but he insisted. And when asked what stood out about that earlier case, Lowen paused before saying, "Both of them, they drew the same door. Why hasn't she come home?" Harper Vance vanished without a trace from a fog-choked bluff in the forests outside Nettle Falls, Oregon. No screams, no confirmed signs of struggle. Just a sketchbook, a carved charm, and a chilling lack of answers. In the weeks following Harper's disappearance, over 2,000 acres of forest were combed by ground teams, helicopters, and cadaver dogs. Divers were deployed to nearby creeks and still water pools. For a time, the local sheriff's office worked in coordination with the Oregon State Police Missing Persons Unit. But every lead unraveled. By December 2003, the case began to lose momentum. No physical remains, no eyewitness break, and no person of interest ever surfaced. On April 6, 2004, 6 months after she vanished, case file 038, B was reclassified as inactive, pending new information. Locals simply called it what it was, a cold case. Despite the classification, the Vance family refused to accept the silence. Judith and Harper's mother, Miranda, returned to Bluff every October, leaving a single flower and a sealed letter tucked under a rock near the ledge. They never shared what was written. On the first anniversary, a vigil was held at Nettle Falls Community Hall. Around 70 people came, family, friends, locals, and quiet observers. One of them left behind a folded napkin with a single phrase written in block letters. She saw something she wasn't meant to. The handwriting was never matched to anyone in attendance. In 2007, a man in Yakima, Washington, claimed to have seen a woman who resembled Harper working at a small grocery store under a different name. When authorities investigated, the woman in question was confirmed to be a local artist who had never left Washington state. False tip. In 2011, the case received a brief resurgence when Harper's original sketchbook, which had disappeared after being logged into evidence, was anonymously mailed back to the sheriff's office. It had one new sketch added to the final page, a wooded trail. At the end, a figure standing in the middle of the path, faceless, with arms raised. The signature read simply, Ush. The FBI was consulted, but no new forensic information could be recovered. To this day, no one knows who had the sketchbook for those 8 missing years. The first and most widely discussed theory is that Harper was abducted while hiking the Bluff alone. The isolated trail system, paired with the early morning fog, could have concealed someone lying in wait or someone following her unnoticed. Theories range from a transient predator to a person familiar with the area, someone who knew the trail well enough to avoid detection. A few locals mentioned a tan SUV parked oddly near the Hemlock Trail Service Road that morning. It was seen again 2 days later, then never again. The sheriff's department logged the license plate as partially obstructed. Only 3 digits were visible. 62K, not enough to match any single vehicle. But no witnesses ever reported hearing screams or signs of a struggle. There were no signs of forced entry to any surrounding cabins. No DNA or personal items recovered. And Harper wasn't carrying a phone. No vehicle, no suspect, no motive. A perfect ghost crime, if there ever was one. To some, Harper's vanishing seemed deliberate. She was emotionally withdrawn in the months before her visit. Judah described her as thoughtful, sometimes sad, but not suicidal. And then there's the charm. The door symbol, carved and tied with red string, was not something law enforcement had ever seen before. Judith later revealed that Harper had asked strange questions in the days before her disappearance. Quiet ones, about whether anyone would miss her if she changed her name, whether it was possible to disappear and start fresh without hurting the people left behind. On its face, this theory fits. A troubled teen, overwhelmed by pressure, drawn to isolation. Maybe she had made a plan, saved money, left clues in plain sight. But there were no bank withdrawals, no ticket stubs, no sign she had packed anything more than her sketchbook and boots. She never used her email again. No social media logins. No witness accounts of her in the years since. For a planned disappearance, it was immaculate. Too immaculate, investigators argued, though it edges toward folklore. Many locals still believe that something about Deadman's Bluff is wrong. Not haunted, but off, a place where echoes return too late, and trails seem to change subtly, as if nudging hikers just off their path. One retired SAR worker claimed her compass spun erratically near the eastern ridge. Another said he heard scratching, though no animals were ever found. There is no proof, nothing that would hold up in a case file. But it's difficult to ignore one detail. Harper wasn't the only one to vanish in the Hemlock region. 2 other cases, both predating Harper's disappearance, involved young women last seen in the vicinity. Case MS 98-0407. Amy Weller, 17, last seen hiking with friends in 1998. She fell behind on the trail. Never seen again. The case was declared inactive in April 2001 due to insufficient leads. Case WS 93-1121. Carla Reed, 19, amateur photographer, vanished during a solo sunrise hike in 1993. Her camera was recovered. No photos past the trailhead. The case remains unsolved. Neither case was ever formally linked to Harper's disappearance, but the pattern remains unsettling, especially the door motif. Later found etched into bark of a cedar tree near where Carla disappeared. Were these young women victims of terrain, of missteps and poor timing? Or did they all see something no one else could? Miranda Vance never stopped looking for her daughter. She kept a log of every tip, every false lead. She preserved every voicemail, particularly the one she received at 2:12 a.m. on October 5th, 2003. The one with the faint voice that seemed to whisper, "Here." She played that message every year on Harper's birthday, a ritual she called to recall. Judith moved away from Nettle Falls in 2010. In her final interview, she admitted to dreams, always the same, where Harper was standing by the old fir near the bluff, looking over her shoulder, about to speak. But she never did. Harper's friends created an online memorial forum in 2004. Over time, it evolved into a space for missing persons awareness. It's still active, occasionally receiving comments from anonymous users claiming to have seen her. Most of them are obvious hoaxes, some less so. It's been over 20 years since Harper Vance vanished into the Oregon wilderness. Her missing person poster still hangs, weathered and yellowed, in the post office near Hemlock Trail. In 2022, a hiker uploaded a video to a niche trail exploration channel. At 11:32 into video, while filming a walk along the foggy bluff, the camera briefly captures something barely visible through the trees. A person standing still, wearing a blue hoodie. No movement, no acknowledgement. When the hiker retraced the path 2 days later to investigate, the figure was gone. No footprints. No evidence of anyone ever being there. The moment is time-stamped. The uploader titled the video, "Hemlock Ridge, no one should hike alone here." So what happened to Harper Vance? Was it a tragic accident, a planned escape, or something far more sinister? Drop your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories exploring real-life horrors and haunting disappearances.